Good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin Burns. I'm the mayor of Geneva, Illinois, and I have the pleasure of serving as the chairperson of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus Environment and Energy Committee, and I am the immediate past chair of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. This morning, we have some exciting information to share with you, and by way of reference, it was just last November on America Recycles Day that we kicked off the Chicago Metro Recycling Education and Outreach Campaign, otherwise known as my favorite 80s band, REO. 6 solid waste agencies and counties in the region joined the caucus and together helped design a collaborative program to increase participation and decrease contamination in recycling. We secured a 3-year, $2 million EPA grant to implement our campaign, and this partnership, as referenced, brings together years of expertise, resources, industry knowledge, and passion for waste reduction, sustainability, and the circular economy. All of our key partners of the Chicago Metro REO campaign are with us today to demonstrate the power of collaboration. We have made great progress, and we want to share information with you about that progress and what's currently under development. We will also be asking for your help, as we always do, in making this campaign successful. First up is the project manager, my colleague and friend, Edith Macra. She is the Director of Environmental Initiatives for the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, who's going to provide us an overview. So with that, I turn it over to the distinguished, the honorable, and the venerable Edith Macra.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And by the way, Edith wrote that introduction for me, so.
There we go. All right, I'm really thrilled with the strong participation and really excited to have all of the partners and stakeholders and colleagues joining us for this presentation today. So this is more or less a 1-year update on what's up with REO. So we started the program, we actually got our contract about a year ago, obviously some administrative startup, but we've been super busy. There's also, as you probably have watched, some disruption just in the federal funding flow. But with all of that, the project is making remarkable progress and we're on track. So we want to tell you what's up with REO. So the project, as Mayor Burns said, officially kicked off in November. We used the America Recycles Day as an anchor, and we kicked off at one of the MRFs with great participation. EPA joined us and just said, we've got a great project, here's the problem, here's what we're going to do. We then moved on to so much administrative work to get this project up and running. Our grant request was a $2 million award, and that came to us with a 3-year timeline. It is a competitive grant. It was part of EPA's investment in recycling that included grants and infrastructure. Ours was specifically part of EPA's Recycling Education and Outreach Grant Program, one of, I think it was 14 grants awarded across the country. And the purpose of our grant, the goals that we set for ourselves was, we put it intentionally in this language, get residents of the metro region excited about recycling again. And we'll talk about the need for that and just the confidence in recycling. And we want to make sure people are on board with it and just sort of that messaging about enthusiasm and the need to recycle. We want to do education about getting it right, recycling right, to address the problem of contamination, not putting things in the recycling bin that aren't going to get recycled and make it harder for those who operate recycling systems, municipal recycling facilities to extract materials of value. So the contamination is a problem. And then we want to encourage, and finally, as sort of the last goal, is encourage consumers in the region to buy recycled. So that's a bit of a secondary, tertiary goal, but it's just as important. So yeah, education and enthusiasm is what we're looking for. First of all, the effort was very meant to be a regional effort. And when these grant programs were announced, and it appeared that it was going to be a limited pool of awardees, it looked to be competitive. And us in the solid waste agencies and the mayor's caucus got together and started to strategize. And rather than compete with one another, because most of the solid waste agencies were interested in applying for the grant, we decided we would be stronger together. And so we really put our heads together for this regional effort, and then we all bring resources to the table. So you'll be hearing from each of the agencies in turn after I speak. Mayor's Caucus is the grant lead. We have a lot of experience with federal grants. We also have tremendous outreach to decision makers throughout 275 municipalities in the metro region. So we're the glue, but really the expertise comes from our solid waste agency partners, the counties and the solid waste agencies that are doing this and have deep knowledge of how to get things done. And when we all work together, we know that we can have greater impact. And so the project was structured to be very robust and comprehensive. And the four key components of the program, addressing our goals of improving recycling rates and participation, we need to understand where we're at now and where we're going. So we have a component, and it's a subcontract with SCS engineers to collect baseline data to measure success, both at the start of the program and at the conclusion of the program over time. So we'll be hearing from Spencer LaBelle about that. But Spencer's busy and at work. A very large part of the grant project is a collaborative marketing campaign. So we're thrilled. We had a competitive process to select a very talented, very well-qualified marketing firm out of Michigan, and it's good marketing. And so Lauren and Chelsea will present about the what they've got planned for us, and they're getting started and at work now too. The third piece of this is that if we're going to reach communities across the region, that we have outreach staff to do that. And while many of the solid waste agencies, some of the solid waste agencies have education teams, it may be not enough. Or not everybody has a dedicated education staff. So Juliet Matthey, our newest team member here, was brought on, and she'll be talking about her part as well. And then because we all decided to work together, these local solid waste agencies have ideas and needs in their community or in their region for what they would like to do with grant funding. So every agency that's a partner on this project gets a sub-award. And so each of the partners in turn will talk about what they plan to do is, in addition to the regional work, they'll get a little support for working within their county or their service area. And then I just wanted to conclude with sort of what the Mayor's Caucus brings to the table, because again, I'll be turning it over to all of the partners on this one. But the Mayor's Caucus has this little thing called the Greenest Region Compact. Most of the municipalities on this call know about this very well, but just for the purposes of the partners, almost 10 years ago now, we launched this Greenest Region Compact to develop consensus on our sustainability goals. And I put on the slide what our Greenest Region Compact or GRC waste and recycling goals are. And the reason that I put them up there is because this is very much aligned with the project. And then as you can see on the map, we have 158 municipalities and 6 of our counties that have formally endorsed these goals through municipal resolution. The Mayor's Caucus is a regional council of governments, or COG. We have 9 sub-regional member organizations and another COG that partners with us. So all 10 of them have also agreed to support these consensus goals. There's other goals in the GRC, but I'm calling out the recycling goals. And my reason for doing that is just to say we are so ready to go, right? We have municipalities that continually bring up interest in recycling. We hear that a lot. The Mayor's Caucus has not really taken on any recycling projects before this Rio one. So we're really pleased to be responsive and really just excited about the talent and expertise that this Rio project brings to our region, and just want to express gratitude, particularly for EPA staff. So not only has the EPA selected us, but EPA staff has been very, very supportive technically as we go to design this program, and then through some challenging administrative times, particularly this year. So expressing gratitude for everyone, and a special thanks to EPA for believing in us and giving us a chance to work together. And with that, I will give it back to Mayor Burns.
Oops, sorry. I think we just jump into our next speaker. So we are delighted. So who are we turning it over to, Edith? My script just went away. Apologies.
Partners. So we have all of the Rio partners.
Yay.
I'm going to do that. So, as I've said, we bring together all of these solid waste agencies and partners. You saw all the logos there. So we wanted each one to talk to you, and if we could start with Walter Willis from Swalco.
Walter, it's all yours, man.
Thank you, Mayor. Solid Waste Agency of Lake County. So we have three main things we're doing with the subaward. One is to increase recycling participation in three of our communities, Zion, North Chicago, and Waukegan. We've actually started that process, and the haulers are going to start counting the amount of recycling carts that are set out in each of those municipalities as a baseline. Then obviously we'll run the campaign and see if we move the needle after about 1.5 years. We also are going to do cart tagging in those same communities in an effort to reduce contamination. And again, that'll be a 3 or 4 week process where we actually, tag people's carts if they're putting improper materials in. And then finally, we want to drive more people to our website and the Recycle Coach platform that we have on there, and really start to count that as well and measure whether or not we can get more people to our website. We're very excited to partner with the haulers and the MRFs on this because we all need to work together. So I'm going to turn it over to Claire Ryan from Kane County.
All right, thanks, Walter. So I believe I'm going to represent Kane County and McHenry briefly today. As Walter said, my name is Claire Ryan. I'm the recycling program coordinator in Kane County. What I'm doing is digging into our hauler data to identify the municipalities and other franchise contract holders whose recycling rate is either consistently lower than the county average or that is decreasing. So unfortunately, we're seeing across the board municipal recycling rates are decreasing a little bit, and it's not just people's behavior. It's stuff like, because it's all weight based, so it's light weighting of materials and things like that. So you might expect to see kind of a uniform trend, but some are steeper than others. So we're going to try and focus some additional outreach and education efforts on those particular communities. We haven't quite started yet. We're honestly, I'm waiting a little bit for the output from our marketing company to actually use those assets to kind of boost the message in those targeted communities. Cart tagging is also on the table for us. We're thinking about it. And we're also, so Kane County has a beloved print publication all about recycling called the Green Guide. We've taken it to every other year. So we're publishing that in even years, 2026. We're going to probably print a few more copies, incorporate the messaging from the broader campaign into the Green Guide, and kind of bolster distribution through our subawarded funds as well, and maybe particularly in those target communities. So that's us. And then Kelly asked me also to just speak briefly on McHenry County's priorities. They are looking at targeting some of their more rural areas, which probably have a lower recycling rate, less recycling behavior, possibly less availability of service. So starting there, she's also looking at multifamily, which is probably a concern area for all of us. And what else did she say? Oh, and she's working on implementing Recycle Coach, which you'll hear more about later today. So hopefully I did okay there, and I will pass it over to Marta.
You did great. Thank you, Claire.
Hi.
Marta.
Hi, I'm Marta King with Will County, and we have 37 municipalities. We've been tracking our solid waste and recycling, and we noticed a trend where the amount that's being produced per person has been increasing. However, the amount recycled has been decreasing in the curbside program. So we're really hoping that we can ignite more enthusiasm. I've encountered personally a lot of residents who seem to have been discouraged with recycling between the China sword, as well as news reports, media reports, and false advertising by some of the producers of materials. Just a lot of confusion and a lot of disheartened people. So we're really hoping with this campaign that we will find more common ground and be able to increase that recycling. We are trying to get more details per municipality on how they're doing, because we do know that there are differences between some and others. And we did start using part of our sub-award already to explore just a generic email education outreach, reaching people that don't already get our newsletter and things like that. So we did see a big response in our spring collection events from that new mailing that we were able to do with grant funds. So we're hoping to do that again this fall, but we are anxiously awaiting the website development and the materials from Good. And hopefully that will result in more people coming to Will County Green and more people using Recycle Coach. That's Will County.
Fantastic. Now I believe we skip Kelly? Is that right?
We did, and I think I'm up next. So Christina
Right,
Siebert
right.
with the Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County. We are using our sub-grant dollars, like others, to do some cart tagging and focusing on communities or portion of our member communities that are lower performing with recycling or that have higher instances of contamination, to provide some direct one-to-one feedback on the contents in their carts. We did do a cart tagging pilot a couple of years ago, so we have a methodology that we'll be using and already have cart tags that have been prepared to support that. We're also going to be using some of the funding to be able to tailor our presentation materials. We do a lot of community presentations that we often are asked to come to speak to groups that are already engaged in the environment and want more knowledge. We'd like to take some of that material and tailor it to be more culturally diverse and more applicable to the average resident, so that we can engage people who we have not always engaged with and don't seek out our services. And finally, developing curriculum for a Citizen Leaders Recycling Academy in order to do a bit of a train the trainer to work with our really engaged civic organizations. We have several Go Green groups across our membership that do distribution of messaging to their contacts. And we sometimes run into conflicts that they're sharing information that is not exactly what we would like them to share or isn't the most accurate. So being able to collaborate with them and bring in universal messaging and broaden our ability to do community education, reaching people through other influencers, if you will, and folks that they find value and trust when they're getting information. And with that, I'm going to toss it to Joy, who I think is on the call.
I am here. Good morning.
Joy.
Can I just say ditto?
Yeah.
We have several communities in DuPage that are lower than we hope and have expected. So we've reached out to a few of those. We started with Bensonville so far. It's been successful. Watch for actually Mayor's Caucus Juliet Matthew to be talking on their cable station here soon. So we're looking forward to the campaign, increasing those areas. We're focusing on bilingual messaging and changing a lot of our outreach to not just bilingual, I should say multiple lingual. So we are looking forward to that. We are also a Recycle Coach community, and we're looking forward to getting more participation on Recycle Coach. And thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joy. Did we miss anybody? Good. Our REO project.
Wait, Kevin, sorry.
What?
We did forget
What did we
someone.
miss?
No, it's not on the agenda, not your fault. Chris Swa from the city of Chicago, sort of a latecomer to the partnership.
Oh, heck. Hey, Chris.
Just give him a chance here to say hi.
Hi, I'll just maybe I'll echo Joy's comments. Ditto. No, we're not a part of the formal grant agreement. I just wanted to include the City of Chicago as part of the team. And obviously with City of Chicago, we've got 625,000 households. We've been myself and Carter O'Brien, who's on my team, and Wilson Mora have been very familiar faces to everybody, just about everybody in this working group. So we just wanted to also be a part of any of the education that we can disseminate to all of our households. We have been doing cart tagging pretty consistently here in our program for the last number of years. Obviously have been a part of like a lot of the task force and some of the other groups that again have been spreading the educational message across the region. And I just wanted to make sure we were a part of the communications and do as much as we can to kind of echo all of the work that this grant will be doing in the region and try to disseminate all that to the households that we service here as well. And lastly, we did implement Recycle Coach as part of our program in January of this year. So glad to be a part of this, and thanks a lot for including us.
Yeah, Chris, and for those that are not familiar, Chicago is located where?
We're right along the lake, so it's
Right
nice.
along, got it. Okay, thank you very much. The REO project, ladies and gentlemen, coincides with the introduction of an incredible tool as referenced by a number of folks called Recycle Coach. It's my pleasure to welcome our good friend, which I have not seen in a while, and it's always a pleasure to see, Liz Kunkel, Recycle Coach's Customer Success Manager for the state of Illinois. Liz, good morning.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks so much, everybody. Nice to see you. I've joined these meetings before, not recently, as Kevin mentioned, but joined previously as a member of Winnetka's Environmental Forestry and Sustainability Commission, newly renamed. So I've participated in these meetings wearing that hat previously. I know many of you through my nonprofit Go Green Winnetka, part of the grassroots group, Food Scrap Coalition. And as many of you know, I've done this work for the length of time I've done this work, I've always come at sustainability from waste reduction, materials management, and recycling, which is why I've been really excited to join this committee and now bring all of that to bear with Recycle Coach, who I joined as my day job just about 4 months ago. So I'm going to share a couple slides on what's happening with Recycle Coach in the state and carry forward what we're talking about and all the education and enthusiasm, because honestly, that's what I'm about. So what Recycle Coach is a Canadian-based company, Toronto-based, started out as a traditional wall calendar recycling company, reminders, in 2001, launched 2010, the first application in the space called My Waste, rebranded in 2015 to Recycle Coach. We're now in 1,700 cities, municipalities, and counties throughout North America. And growing, obviously. The solution consists of 3 primary parts: the collection schedule, whatever's picked up weekly, like refuse, recycling, maybe organics, maybe yard waste, whatever those, again, collection schedules, pickup schedules are, that's one big chunk. The second chunk or feature, major feature of Recycle Coach is called What Goes Where. And thank you, Swank, for carrying that forward in your own website. And thank you, by the way, to all the communities and partners who just gave shouts out to Recycle Coach. Thank you so much for your support, truly. And to MMC for this opportunity, truly. So again, the What Goes Where feature, that was what's most exciting to me, because it's everything that's not collected curbside. And that's what all of our Go Green groups are trying to connect the dots about. Where are the opportunities to otherwise divert, donate, have a drop-off site, have an event that collects something other than put it in landfill. The What Goes Where feature in Recycle Coach is what accumulates and then disseminates all of that information. Those first 2 features of Recycle Coach, the information regarding collection schedules and the What Goes Where feature, all of that is uploaded and input by county and municipal staff. All of that is uploaded, and then Recycle Coach, our technology, our algorithms, and our staff take that and turn it into education, which is the third feature of Recycle Coach, the discovery zone. And all of this honestly gets at exactly what this campaign is going for, which is increasing recycling rates while decreasing contamination and improving consumer understanding and awareness of recycling and diversion opportunities. And through this extended partnership with the Illinois EPA, this technology is available through every county, to every municipality, and ultimately to every resident in the state of Illinois. And again, it's all based on local rules. Recycle Coach doesn't create the content. We just turn your local rules and disposal instructions into the content that then your residents get, and hopefully we know they can trust it because it's coming from you, not an outside source, based on your staff, again, staff situation, your hauler information, again, your Go Green Group options, whatever those are. Recycle Coach provides a platform to share those with your residents. We're just the architecture. Our CEO says our clients, the municipalities and counties, you are the data managers. We are just the data processors. You own it. We just help manage it. That's it. And what I showed on this screen is what the app looks like on the widget on the mobile device, and also what a widget looks like on a website. So this is what residents see when they're looking at their phone or at a community website. Sorry, I forgot to share my screen, and I'm so sorry. I got excited. See, I got ahead of myself. And now, of course, it's delayed. There we go. Sorry about that. There's the close-up screen. Apologies. So a little bit of the stats of where we are in Illinois. The contract was entered about a year ago. Again, I just joined 3 or 4 months ago, helping to get many counties and municipalities who are already in the process, if you will, over the finish line. We've got 7 counties and 2 waste agencies live, 7 more poised and ready to start. 9 are in the process of reviewing the content and almost ready to go live. And then I'm just working down the list of other counties in the state of Illinois, honestly trying to hit every one of them. And then we also have municipalities that have reached out to us individually. As you can see, a number are live, ready to start. Again, 50 plus in the thick of it already. 15, that ready to launch category, that means they have everything ready to go. They just need to upload that widget. So 15 more are poised and ready to go live any day. If you have questions, let me know. As you can tell, I am honestly excited about it. Please email me. Please download the Recycle Coach app if you haven't already, and let's do this good work together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Coach Kunkel. We appreciate it very much. Folks, the US EPA created the REO grant program in response to lagging recycling rates and confusion about how to recycle. Our region, of course, is no exception, as you've heard from multiple speakers already. In fact, local waste haulers, operators of municipal recycling facilities known as MRFs, and solid waste agencies have been working together for years to try to reduce contamination in the recycling stream. We are very lucky to have 3 knowledgeable leaders in the recycling industry to help us understand why regional collaboration is needed now. I'm going to turn this over to our friend Phil Schaefer, VP of Chapter Relations for the National Waste and Recycling Association. And I believe Philip's going to introduce his teammates as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm Philip Schaefer with the National Waste and Recycling Association. NWRA, we're a leading association that represents the private sector of the waste and recycling industry, and advocate for the federal and state legislative and regulatory matters, working to shape policies to advance safe, sustainable, and efficient waste and recycling systems. Our members operate in all 50 states. They include companies and they handle everything from household to industrial waste, hazardous, medical, and construction debris. We also represent the manufacturers, distributors, and service providers who support the essential infrastructure. NWRA plays a critical role in promoting best practices in worker safety, especially given the hazardous nature of the work. Later this year, NWRA will be leading a public awareness campaign to build consumer trust and reinforce the message that recycling is real. In short, NWRA serves as an influential and unifying association, advancing the interest, innovation, and integrity of the waste and recycling industry. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Javier Erazo from Waste Connections. Share my screen. There we go. Javier, turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. I'll be presenting alongside John Posma from Homa Disposals. We're both proud members of the Illinois National Waste and Recycling Association, and we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and share some insight from our industry. Our goal is to address some common misconceptions about recycling, to reinforce public confidence in the system, and to highlight the value of increasing participation in recycling programs. Let's go over to the next slide. The Chicago metropolitan area is fortunate to have 10 single-stream recycling facilities. We all believe recycling is a core value to our business operation, and this is demonstrated through the ongoing investments in our recycling infrastructure, collection, and education. As an example, there have been several new recycling plants built in the Chicago area over the last few years, including Waste Management in Hodgkins, LRS in Chicago, and Waste Connections in Plainfield. In addition to these, many existing facilities have also invested in upgrading their systems to incorporate optical and robotic sorting technologies. Combined, these investments exceed $250 million. We believe continuing recycling education is critical for ongoing growth and development in recycling. Now, I'd like to hand it over to John. John will continue by diving deeper into how we can strengthen public trust in recycling and explore the broader impact of end markets and recycled contents. Take it away, John.
Yeah, thank you, Javier. Like Javier, Homewood Disposal, we're a hauling company as well as a MRF operator. So we both can speak from both sides of that. Phil, could you advance to the next slide? Thank you. NWRA and SWANA, the Illinois chapters of each, formed the Illinois Recycling Contamination Task Force. I think that started back in 2018 to address contamination issues in the residential recycling collection, as well as to increase the marketability of the recyclables and increase participation in the programs. One of the steps as part of that committee was to create an acceptable and non-acceptable material list for the various Chicagoland MRFs. As part of this effort, NWRA Illinois worked with the local counties and municipalities to improve education outreach. For example, from this task force effort, the IEPA created a more robust webpage for recycling information with the do's and don'ts of items that go into the recycling cart. So let's talk a little bit about contamination and wish cycling. Of course, wish cycling you're all familiar with. We don't know for sure if it's recycling. You know, this is what the residents are thinking and they wish it were, so they put it in the bin. First we have to start with the safety component. I think as a MRF operator, we're just inundated with safety as a priority, and we're seeing lots of safety concerns in the MRF. When we don't recycle correctly, we are putting employees and customers at risk. A prime example of this are the fires that occur in the MRFs and in the collection vehicles due to lithium batteries being in the stream. Coordinated efforts include NWRA and SWANA and other stakeholders, SWANC, SWALCO, for example, working together on state legislation, most recently the lithium battery bill, as well as other continual educational campaigns, social media, tagging, etc. Recycling contamination has indeed increased the processing costs for the industry and ultimately for your constituents. Common items we see at the MRF that cause safety problems and issues include lithium batteries, as we've mentioned a couple times already, tanglers such as hoses, cords, Christmas tree lights, plastic bags, garbage such as diapers, food waste, and even dead animals. We see it all at the MRF. So next slide, Phil. Let's talk a little bit about the regional markets. Obviously, we need good end markets for the products that we are sorting and sending to market. At the recycling facilities, we do have the ability to process material safely and effectively to assure value and market material. It's important that the recycling industry have strong, reliable markets. In the Chicago metropolitan area, we are fortunate to have many nearby markets in this region. For example, right in our backyard, we have Pratt Industries, a big paper mill in Valparaiso. We have Sabelco, which they're a glass processor. They have operations in Chicago Ridge as well as Delavan, Wisconsin. the Green Bay packaging. There are lots of paper mills in the Green Bay area. And then, of course, we have the steel mills in Northwest Indiana that consume many of our steel cans. This has really shifted and for the better since Green Fence and China Sword from a number of years ago. Of course, true recycling occurs when the material we collect at the curbside is turned into new reusable material. And that's what our goal is. And, you know, the chasing arrows, I just want to make a comment on that. I guess the chasing arrows and numbers on the product do lead to some confusion, right? A resident sees the arrow and doesn't know for sure. They think it's automatically recyclable because of the arrow, and that's not always the case. So that is another challenge we face. Recycling is an important part of this cycle recycling content is an important part of the cycle as it increases demand for the recyclables. So we always encourage our customers and our employees and anybody that we can to look for that recycling content piece when they make their purchases of the materials. And then I just want to, I think Phil touched on it briefly, but the NWRA is in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service is launching a national public service campaign this fall, which features Woodsy Owl to promote safe battery disposal, responsible recycling, and renewed public confidence that recycling is real. The campaign is set to roll out this August. You can see the logo down in the corner. Fortunately, the requirement is under 6 feet to wear that costume. So maybe Javier, you could wear that.
Not yet.
No, but thank you for this opportunity, and we appreciate the opportunity to present.
Oh, it looks like you're muted, Mayor Burns.
There we go.
My apologies. Good Lord. Thank you again, gentlemen. Appreciate it. And in case you're curious, yes, we have goals for the REO campaign. And central to those goals is, of course, increased participation and better participation in reducing contamination. To measure our progress, of course, we need data and we need analysis. Across our region, with 275 municipalities and numerous independent companies providing services in the private sector, such data and such analysis is often very, very difficult to secure. Spencer LaBelle, our consultant on the REO project, is certainly up for the task, and it's my pleasure to introduce all of you to Spencer, the senior project professional at SCS Engineers. And I'm not certain if Mayor Noak is with us or not, but I know he's referenced to be here. Spencer, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. My name is Spencer LaBelle with SCS Engineers out of our Naperville, Illinois office. We're working with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus to support the REO grant, as we know, through data collection and analysis. And this is a critical piece of the project. It's used to evaluate the effectiveness of the education and outreach campaign and all of the work that the REO partners are doing, to meet the REO grant objectives through measurable results. And these objectives are to improve participation in recycling programs and reduce contamination in the materials that are getting to the MRFs. The data collection and analysis efforts begin with pre-campaign data collection. And for that pre-campaign data collection, we are looking at the 2024 calendar year to set our baseline. So we're looking at a variety of data points to assess the effectiveness of the campaign. But I want to highlight the key data points for municipalities here on the call that we're looking for. So some of those data points are tonnage of recyclables per year for each municipality, number of single-family households, and we're defining that as households with 4 or less units, type of collection of the recyclables, whether it's a curbside program, drop-off, or a combination of the 2 programs, and the frequency of collection. We're also coordinating with waste haulers and MRFs to collect information regarding incoming material volumes and contamination rates that they experienced in 2024 to assess the campaign's impact on the contamination piece. And I have to say, of the 275 caucus member communities, we have nearly 80% of the data for the pre-campaign year that we need, which is awesome news. And we really appreciate the collaboration from the waste haulers and the communities. I want to highlight the gaps that we're seeing that we're working to fill in are primarily in communities in McHenry County and Will County. So you should be hearing, those communities should be hearing from us and the Rio partners soon in an effort to fill in those gaps. So I could spend probably this entire presentation talking about the nuance and the details of our data collection and comparison, but I want to just keep it at a very high level at the moment. So in order to assess the effectiveness of the campaign, the education, and the marketing tools, we'll be looking at 2024 as our pre-campaign data set, and then coming back to look at 2026 data. We'll be collecting the data in a similar manner as we did in 2024. So you should be expecting some outreach communications from us at SCS, from the Rio partners, and the Mayor's Caucus towards the end of 2026 and into the beginning of 2027. One of the key aspects in this term continues to show up here in everybody's presentations, and that's collaboration. Collaboration is incredibly important for the Rio campaign and its success, as well as the data collection piece. We appreciate the efforts that have been made so far to pull the data together and to provide it to the Rio partners. As we continue to fill in data gaps, we want to encourage you to work with the Rio partners representing your county to make sure that your data is included for 2024. For those that we are still filling in data gaps, you'll be receiving a survey from SCS and the caucus, and we ask that you fill it out with as much information as possible, but also that you seek support from your waste hauler. They're an incredible resource for you, and we appreciate the collaboration that they have provided so far. One thing I'd want to kind of leave us with on this collaboration note is we're all needing to work together so that we reap the benefits of this effective campaign. Such an important aspect to everything that we do, and that collaboration piece is going to take us a long way. So I want to say thank you again for your help with the data collection efforts thus far. And with that, I'll open it up to any discussion or comment.
I have a quick comment, Spencer, if I may. Your reference to the 80% of data already collected throughout the 275 municipalities is pleasantly surprising to me. My assumption, therefore, is that the 20% remaining, we need to leverage respectfully our relationships with our waste haulers to get that data. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And once again, I want to highlight the communities that we're working to fill in gaps are primarily in McHenry County and Will County.
Okay, so I can perhaps reference at our next executive board meeting my friends throughout McHenry and Will and others that respective mayors can perhaps reach out directly to their contractors and say, hey, listen, help us out. This is an important campaign and we expect you to participate. Does that sound good?
That's the collaboration that we need.
You got it. If nothing else, we'll send the folks at Swelco after them. So,
and Mayor Burns, I would just throw in there, for your colleagues that are in McHenry and Will counties, it's not through lack of response that we don't.
Oh, of course.
Currently, it's that the mechanisms that other counties and agencies have to collect that data are different. And when there isn't a mechanism to collect it, we don't have that leg up. So, playing a little catch up in a couple of counties.
Yeah, and at least the conversation can be had and for the spirit of the goal. So sounds good. Now I pronounce the campaign REO. Others just say Rio. So forgive me for that. But recycling, education, and outreach is the principle and is in the name. So it's fundamental to the success of this campaign. With the grant, as referenced earlier, $2 million, and the expertise of recycling educators in the region, we have been able to create a new position and hire my colleague, Juliet Matthey, to be our recycling education and outreach specialist. It's my pleasure to turn the floor over to Juliet and welcome her to the team. Juliet, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor Burns. It's nice to see you all today. I know that we've heard a lot from our partners, and Edith set us up for a great conversation here. And I just wanted to introduce what I'll be doing as the outreach specialist a little bit more. So as Edith appropriately mentioned, there are some gaps in resources that are available to communities, whether our partners don't have dedicated education specialists, or perhaps municipalities aren't served directly by our partners. So my main goal is to be serving communities that our partners don't reach, and then also supplementing the efforts that they are making already in communities that they do reach. And I am not trying to reinvent the wheel here when it comes to recycling education. So I've had the pleasure to meet with almost all of our partners thus far, as well as some people that are in our service area that are not our direct partners. So I've met with some sustainability professionals, and I'm reaching out to environmental commissions. So I encourage you, if you are a sustainability professional or if you have any contacts, share them in the chat, and I will be reaching out to hear how we can work together on this project. It's a collaboration, not just with the official partners on this grant, but with all of us across the region. And with that, I just wanted to also mention that we are trying to figure out how to prioritize the communities that we're reaching out to. So we are identifying community needs, whether that is current educational resources, recycling infrastructure, or environmental groups that are already serving the region. And with that, I am going to have Cheryl share a few polls on the screen, if you could fill those out. Essentially, what we're looking for is if your municipality has any of the following: an environmental commission, sustainability staff, an environmental education or advocacy group, or a sustainability plan. Edith mentioned that a lot of our partners are on the GRC project, and part of that is a lot of them also have sustainability plans. The second question is what you think your community's main barrier to recycling right is, whether that's a lack of education, a lack of resources, perhaps those resources are already there, but we don't know where to find them. Maybe recycling in general is too confusing, or if you, from your perspective, don't perceive any barriers to recycling right. So if you could just answer those polls on the screen, that would be wonderful. And again, feel free to reach out in the chat with your own contact, or perhaps any contacts or groups that you are aware of, and I will be reaching out in the future with this.
Thanks, Juliet.
Thank you, Mayor.
You can interpret the.
Yep. So it looks like so far we have a lot of groups that do, a lot of people are saying that their municipality does have a sustainability plan, which is great. A little over 50% have environmental commissions or advocacy groups, which is great. A lot of sustainability staff as well. And then it looks like, as far as main barrier to proper recycling, a lot of people are saying there's a lack of education, which we perceived with this grant, and that's what we're here for. So again, reach out and I will be in contact with you to see how we can improve that education, whether it's through the marketing campaign that we'll be hearing from in just a moment, or any tabling.
You know, Juliet and Edith and Tori, 10 years ago when the GRC started, the number of communities with commissions, environmental activism, etc., were few and far between. So now we have some of those nuts and bolts in place that hopefully will help elevate what we're trying to achieve. So it's good news. The REO goal is to get, one of the REO goals is to get residents excited about recycling again. And that is a huge opportunity and, of course, challenge. And we need strategies and messages to reach this goal. With the grant resources we have been provided, we're able to hire an experienced and imaginative marketing firm to develop a marketing campaign. Please welcome our friends Chelsea and Lauren from Good Marketing. And I love the way you spell it. Fantastic. Who's going to share some information with us. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Chelsea
Good morning.
Martin, Senior Strategist and Research Manager with my colleague Lauren, our Account Manager. A little bit about our agency. Yes, even with the umlaut, it is pronounced Good Marketing, and that really does represent not just how we view our work, it is good work, but the type of work we do. We are concentrated on helping communities and building a greater good. Environmental work is one of our key pillars of work, along with affordable housing, education, and community infrastructure projects. Our team includes 50 folks right now. That's everyone from graphic designers, copywriters, PR professionals, media buyers, researchers, video production. So we can do soups to nuts, the entire marketing process. And we really pride ourselves on partnering with excited, enthusiastic collaborators as this group is. In the recycling space, we do run the State of Michigan campaign, the Recycling Raccoons, Know It Before You Throw It campaign for the last 7 years here. We've also worked with the Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio, Columbus area, to help them with their recycling education. In addition, recently we've done work with the EPA on the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, as well as efforts around communicating the risks of lead in water to communities experiencing action levels. So we touch a lot of different things. Most of our work is government and nonprofit driven, which makes this a great fit. So with that, we are focused as a team with our partners on the REO team of getting people excited about recycling again. We know that one of the barriers people often hear is it's become a little bit part of the furniture for recycling. People feel like they know the rules, or it's not worth it to update what you know. They change too often, it gets too complicated. But we are lucky because we are building an education and marketing campaign on top of a solid foundation. Communities have a solid set of rules that are very consistent across the region. We can make it simple. And for those materials that are one-offs or uncommon, we've got the Recycling Coach, which provides that solid answer of what people should do with that material in a very easy way to access. So this campaign that we are building, we're right at the beginning of it, is going to really focus on getting people excited, telling them this is worthwhile, breaking through their attention. There's a lot of things competing for our brain space and our eyeballs and our ears every day. So this is going to be our chief task, bringing people to this information and getting them to take that next step and see how easy it is to relearn the rules of recycling, learn them for the first time, and understand that it's actually happening and benefiting. Your water bottles are going to a local place to be turned into a new thing. Your metal cans are getting reused. So that is the big picture of what the marketing campaign will do. We're right in the early stage. I'm going to turn that over to Lauren to give you guys an idea of the timeline for building the campaign.
Thanks, Chelsea. This is just a quick snapshot at where we're at now and where we're heading through this year. So right now, Chelsea has been interviewing with some key stakeholders, and then we're also very much in that initial planning and concepting phase of this campaign. So our team is working on some messaging as well as concepts for what these different ads out in the world are going to look like. That is June through July. And then as we move into August and September, continuing to finalize those campaign plans to really make sure we're going to reach the right person in the right way, the right place, and at the right time. So once we finalize that creative concept, then we move into building out all of the different assets for the campaign, as well as, I know it was mentioned earlier, development of a website where we are really going to be driving these people to for further education. And then we are, as far as campaign implementation timing, we are looking at October to kick off this campaign effort with some PR opportunities, as well as once we get the ads out into the world, our team will continue to monitor how the campaign is performing, which will also influence how we continue this campaign over the course of 2026 and 2027. And then, of course, while this big campaign is a really large part of this effort, we also want to make sure we are continuing to amplify our message throughout all communities. So if you all have common communication channels that you frequently use, please share that with us, and we'll incorporate that into our campaign planning and the assets we create for you all to utilize. And that's all we have. Thank you.
Fantastic. I mean, I am impressed. We still have, my gosh, almost 30, or is it 30 minutes? 30 or so minutes remaining. We are going to allot for about 7 minutes of questions. So who has questions for our friends from Good Marketing? I have one, if I may kick it off. In your experience in Michigan in particular, when you launched the campaign and then you measured the efficacy of that campaign, did you experience a shift in messaging from one year to the next based on feedback from those participating? Or was that campaign just carried out throughout the duration of the effort?
Yeah, that's a great question. We measure attitudes and knowledge statewide through a survey every year in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Able to track some before our campaign started and then every year throughout. Self-reported knowledge around recycling. So when we found that we had a sustained increase in people saying, oh, yeah, I know I'm supposed to rinse and empty out my containers before I recycle them, we demoted that message. We didn't need to reinforce it as frequently when we saw that we weren't making traction on people understanding, no, stop putting your plastic bags into your recycling cart. That message elevated. We were spending more time, more money, prioritizing that. And then we've had a few messages over time where we gained and then we've lost some ground. So we need to find a new way of telling that story. People either didn't pay attention the first time, or they've learned it and then kind of stopped enacting it in their daily recycling. So we're very data-driven and hopeful, or hope to use data to drive those decisions. It's great to have the Recycle Coach data of what people have questions on. It's great when we have Spencer's data on what people are actually recycling or not recycling correctly across the whole region to make those educated, educational messaging decisions on.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to turn over to my colleagues at the caucus to help me guide any Q&A from anybody who raises their hand or throws it in the chat. Our friends from Good Marketing have allowed us ample time for Q&A.
Yeah. Well, actually, Kevin, we just ran a really tight meeting. We had so many speakers we thought we were going to go over. So
I know, it's like, what the hell, man? What are we going to do now?
I told everybody to limit their time. So I think there's two things that I might want to call back on. So if we can kind of bounce back to the solid waste agencies and Spencer, because there's a pretty rich conversation going in the chat about measuring the data and the quantity. So I'm just going to open it up to anybody there who wants to answer some of those questions live or raise some points.
Anyone at all, please chime in. Every question is important. This is a chance to drill down, as it were.
I can jump in. The question that was posed, I think, was whether there was data available or if we could get data that would show the breakdown of the materials that are being recycled rather than just the quantities of total recycling that are happening.
Okay.
So there was some discussion in the chat about that. I think that now is a really great opportunity. I'll put the recyclers on the spot a little bit, but this is, this is a factor of how material is managed when it comes into the facilities. And we find it so impactful often talking to people who haven't seen how our recycling gets handled to just show them a video of what happens at a MRF when that material comes out of a truck and the amount that is mixed together and how fast it moves across the line and all the different mechanical components that separate it out into its component pieces. But I think maybe Javier or John, if maybe one of you wants to talk about what challenges there are in being able to say specifically what the composition of that stream is, particularly if we wanted it at a municipal level. If we wanted to know what's happening, what's coming off of the curb in, let's say, Evanston, and what that mix is.
Sure, I can take that, Christina. Thanks. Yeah, and appreciate your willingness to understand this part of it. From the recycling facility standpoint, we don't really know where the material is coming from that we get, right? Some of it is delivered via recycling trucks from our own collection, from third-party haulers, but most of it comes in via transfer trailers, right? So the recycling is collected, it's brought to a transfer station, it's loaded up into a transfer trailer, and then brought to the recycling center for processing. So much of the material throughout the Chicagoland moves in that manner, and as such, it's all dumped together onto the tip floor. Let me be clear, it's all recycling. It's still separated from the trash, but we have a big tip floor for all the recycling, and it represents many communities and even multiple states. For example, in Homewood here, we take in a lot of material from Indiana. So that material is all collected, and then we process it through the processing system. And of course, it's all commingled in, and we don't really know what component is from a community, much less which state. It's completely mixed together. And at the end of the day, we process the material and we make the bales of aluminum, the bales of tin, bales of OCC, et cetera. So hopefully that helps that part of it.
John, I have a question for you. When you referenced bales of tin, bales of aluminum, bales of whatever, are those bales 100% pure tin, or is there a give factor that?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Mayor. Every commodity has certain, every mill has certain standards that they have to accept material by. So each grade is a little bit different. A bale of cardboard is a little bit more forgiving than a bale of aluminum, for example. Okay. But there are pretty tight specs for each, and that is one of the challenges from a MRF is to meet that spec. And when there's more contamination, it's harder and harder to meet that spec. Oh, sure. And it does affect the amount of recyclable material when it is more contaminated.
And I think I know the answer to this question, but bottom line, if it's contaminated beyond what the market will accept, what becomes of that bale?
So, yeah, either it gets rejected at the mill and it gets sent back and it has to get reprocessed. That's what happens with fortunately, we don't have that. I think most of the MRFs are very careful, and they've got quality drilled into the process, right? So we've got quality control personnel and management all throughout the process. So it doesn't happen a lot, but we do at times have to slow the lines down, stop the lines to remove tanglers from screens and things like that, all affecting the cost of processing.
Have you ever had to stop the lines because of mayoral portraits? I'm just kidding. Other people have questions. Fire away. Anyone and everyone.
There was one that popped up in the chat that probably John is good to talk about too. I think he talked about it in his presentation about the concerns about promoting recycling because of the potential that it's being sold to overseas markets. Can you talk about the clarity of what we know is happening with recyclables? I know you said in your presentation that we keep things primarily domestic.
Yeah, most of it does go domestic, but there is still an export component to the recycling material in the United States and North America. For example, India is buying some mixed paper from the U.S. Not a lot. Not like it used to be, back in the day, there was a lot going to China, and now the infrastructure of mills in the U.S. has really stepped up. Pratt, I think, has 3 newer mills now and other paper factories as well. So, yeah, so much less percentage. I don't know what the global or the North American statistics are, but I'm sure it's down considerably from where it was.
Yeah, for the most part, we rely on domestic markets, but to John's point, if their mill downtime or they're doing upgrades, we do sometimes have to rely to some of these export markets, but for the most part, it's domestically.
I got a quick question for the Murph guys, since we're on a roll with you.
He's afraid of that.
So you guys, there's this idea that you have a residue rate, which is basically what your plant can't process. Now, do you guys study that? And a lot of it is recyclable material, right? That just your system can't collect the first time through. So when you look at the residue, how much of it is truly contaminants that you don't want versus material that your plant just couldn't quite capture? I mean, we get on the generator a lot for high residue rates, but a lot of it's still good. So can you kind of talk to that balance and how we can how we can really measure and how much you guys understand true contaminants?
Yeah, that's a good question. The true contaminants are easy to understand, the plastic bags and the tanglers and stuff, but you're right, Walter, there is a percent that just goes off the end of the line that wasn't able to be captured. And a lot of the MRFs are more sophisticated today than they were 5 years ago even. And having an optical sorter as a last chance optical is common now to capture any plastic that got missed. For example, the MRFs today generally have optical sorters to shoot out PET, to shoot out HDPE, to sort the HDPE by color, to shoot out the polypropylene. And then after it goes through all those sorts, typically a MRF has one more as a last chance optical, and that shoots out anything that it missed, and it gets entered back into the stream to rerun. So that's a typical commonplace now, and that does help that. But for example, shredded paper, a bag of shredded paper gets opened up. It goes through the glass screen, or it goes through the fine screen. It enters with the glass and has to be sorted at the glass cleanup area. And no matter how hard you try to clean that shredded paper up, you're going to get pieces of glass to go with it, or you're going to have shredded paper that goes with the glass, depending on your cleanup system. And neither is a good solution. And that's an example of something that is recyclable, but it's not recyclable in the form of being shredded.
That is fascinating, isn't it? That's the number one question I get is, why the heck, if paper is recyclable, why can't I put shredded paper in there? So thank you for that explanation.
We tell people that shredded paper is like confetti or worse at the MRF. Once it's there, it goes everywhere.
Now in Geneva, we just take our shredded paper and dump it in St. Charles. I don't know if that's a problem, but it seems to work for us. So.
John, I'm wondering, just to expand on this and thinking of the campaign, and I know there's many that are on the call from our municipalities that want to better message to their residents to recycle well. Part of it's knowing the materials that go in, part of it's preparing the materials that go in. So is there some of that residue that comes off the line that's because people don't properly prepare their material? What happens if they don't flatten a cardboard box? What happens if they're putting their cans and bottles into the cereal box or the cracker box before they take it out to their cart? What types do we see impacts that are from behavior of preparing materials, even if they're the correct material, that influences the ability to recover those?
I would say for the most part, the examples you gave are not a problem. The material really, from once it's collected, it's compacted into the truck. And then once it's tipped, though, at the recycling floor, there's a whole bunch of liberation events that happen, right? So the material gets scooped up with a front end loader. It gets put into a drum feeder that has a rotating drum that liberates the material. And then it generally goes over some type of screening system. So through all that, the case of that generally liberates most of the material. The example of packaging or preparation that comes to mind that's the most problematic is the plastic bags. When they're in a plastic bag, The plastic bag sometimes rips open, sometimes it doesn't. If it gets to the pre-sort line, then we have a choice of, do we have to stop the line and try to rip the bag open and empty the material, or are we just tossing the bag? Those are the situations that occur with the plastic bags.
Anyone else?
Yeah, if I could jump in, Mayor Burns.
Please do.
I think my question might be pointed at Spencer, but anybody feel free to jump in. So one of the things that I'm curious about with the data collection is if we will get kind of more nuanced data about materials. It seems like there's some challenges with just using kind of aggregate tonnage of recycling versus total waste. You would think that there would be, trends in materials and packaging that may impact the tonnage of either one of those. Whether people compost is going to affect the tonnage, overall tonnage and recycling rates. So there's a lot of nuance that can impact just that overall figure. It would be really helpful for us at a municipal level to understand materials and specific contaminations that we can create targeted communication to our residents. And I'm also curious if there's other municipalities out there that have included metrics in your contracts. Here in Downers Grove, we're looking at, we just released an RFP for our solid waste contract, and could use some examples of how we can improve our tracking at a municipal level with our solid waste hauler to really improve our communication to residents.
And Jason, who is your current contractor now?
We currently have Republic.
Okay.
Yeah, Jason, the nuance of what goes into that aggregate number, in our assessment as we're looking at that aggregate, is not necessarily captured. However, there are things that we can do to further break that down, mostly with waste characterization and waste assessments at that local level. So our objective, obviously, is to work with the MRFs to understand what types and amounts of contamination they have in regards to those quantities. We'll work with John, we'll work with Javier and the rest of the MRF community to understand what information they have collected, and be able to explain the importance of that more detailed evaluation. But I think Steve Schilling put an article in the chat at some point about the importance of waste characterization studies or waste assessments on a MRF level to better understand that breakdown of materials.
Anyone else?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that article. Anybody want to recap that's read it? Just because we have a lively discussion going. What's the Spencer, Steve?
It's timely. It was just published in Waste today. So
okay.
And we have one of the authors, right?
Yeah. So
recap for us.
We tend to focus a lot on waste audits and waste characterizations right now. And not a lot of people are looking at what the inflow into our recycling facilities are. So we do have some clients that are doing that. But I think that information is way more valuable than what is being tossed. We know what needs to go into our MRFs. Let's face it, by the time it gets into our garbage cans, it's long gone. We know what's in there. We have tons of studies, but let's focus on what's going into the MRFs. What's the MRF efficiency? Can we get those materials, better captured by the MRF? So, there's technologies coming out now with automation and vision systems that we can start integrating those into our waste characterizations or material characterizations, and they will give us way more information and on a more regular basis instead of just a one-time snapshot, which we tend to do. So that's the synopsis of it.
Thank you for that. And if I can point in the chat, we've got a couple of questions on plastic. So we've got what is the response rate or the actual rate that gets recycled? And again, those of you who are in the position to respond to that, please do. I'm not exactly sure who to direct that question to.
So I think one thing, like if you dig into these reports about 9-10% of all plastics being recycled, you find out that as the denominator, they're literally using plastic production in every application you could possibly think of. So say your desk is made of plastic, right? That was never designed to be recycled through a consumer recycling program, but that counts in the denominator of that fraction. Like the vinyl on your car's dashboard counts in the denominator of that fraction. Every drop of latex paint ever made, latex is a polymer paint, that's plastic. That is counted in the denominator of that fraction. So it's basically really making that denominator very, very big to make the percentage of recycling very, very small. And I mean, perhaps it is like important for people to understand that a huge amount of the plastic being produced in the world is not really designed to be recycled. So either our systems for recycling are deficient, or the way we're manufacturing is not cognizant of the cradle to grave or cradle to cradle aspect. Like there just is no recovery thought of when these products are produced. And not across the board. I mentioned latex paint, and there is recycling of liquid latex paint into new paint. So that's not a good example, but like car vinyl, like other, plastic parts and machines, like who knows, they're so complex as well. We have these complex value-added pieces of equipment that have metal, they've got plastics, they've got 10 different types of plastics all melded together. And like, how do you go about recycling that? So there's my take on it. I'd be happy for others to jump in.
Yeah, size and shape play a big role. And just because something's made out of plastic doesn't necessarily mean it can be processed, and our equipment is limited to what it can process. Similar to John's example with shredded paper. Some of it's mechanically screened, some of it's optically sorted. So something like a car part or park or a playground set could potentially damage our optical sorters or our robotic sorters, because there's a limit to the size and shape of the material that we can process through our systems.
From a communication standpoint, sometimes combating a statement with logic is not enough. I would always encourage people to redirect to what is recyclable on a daily basis coming out of households. So focusing on milk jugs are consistently recycled, and a good example of what they get turned into again, you'll see things like park benches often mentioned alongside milk jugs, things like conditioner or other types of plastics in the fridge is a good focus. And then shifting to things that we know are going to be recycled and recycled again. Aluminum, steel, tin are really good positive stories talking about how quickly a pop can can go from your recycling bin back to being a pop can again that you're repurchasing. Those stories of doing something is better than doing nothing, and many things are getting recycled. Most things are getting recycled when you put them in the cart, can be more beneficial than diving deep into the nuance, although there's definitely a time and a place for that.
I think that's also a great place to encourage people to buy post-consumer recycled materials. Recycling works because there is an end market for it, and it's a way to motivate people to buy into recycling and feel like they are making, it does make a difference, or it does go somewhere.
Thank you, Chelsea, for that, Juliet, for those positive messages. But just to press on the plastics question again, so if we have misleading information about the 9%. I wonder if someone can address, it's Glenn Gabriel asked the question in the chat, asking for numbers of PET and HDPE from curbside that is actually successfully recovered for processing. So do we have other numbers that is more accurate?
Yeah, there's definitely capture rates for the PET bottle. Usually they're in the 28 to 30% of what is put in the market is actually recycled. So those two materials have pretty high capture rates. Aluminum's going to be more like 50, 60%. And if you go into bottle bill states, obviously you're seeing pretty high recoveries of all those materials. But on average, when I've read in the literature, it's right around 30% capture for the milk jugs and the beverage containers, plastic.
And once those materials get to the MRF, it's more of a 90, 95%, even higher recovery rate, once it gets to the MRF. It's got to get to the MRF, though.
Right. Oh, we have approximately, Edith, I'm going to ask you to manage the time.
Sure. I just want to call attention to Renee put in a good concluding statement there. You want to just speak up on that one?
Hey, yeah. So that 9% information, that context was great. So I was just like, is it fair to say when we're talking to staff and the public that the stuff that's recyclable, that's going into the stream is recycled, but then the 30 or 90% numbers got thrown out? So, I mean, those are better than 9%.
Yeah, I think the qualifying statement is once it gets to the MRF, that percentage rises substantially.
There's a lot of confusion because we talk about different things. So we have capture rate, which is the material going into the cart into the best possible container that it can. So that's the resident making the decision of where to put it. There's the recovery rate at the MRF of how well does the equipment actually catch those correct items. Then there's the residue rate, which is what goes off the end of the MRF line, which includes contaminants and unrecovered good material. And then there's the contamination rate, which is the bad stuff that should have never gone in the cart in the first place. It goes back to improper capture. So we use all these different terms. And then when we see this used out in the literature, out in news stories, everybody's looking for that shocking headline. And they're not taking the time to break down the terms or the understanding of what goes into each of those different elements of behavior or operations and technical considerations that are outside of the control of the generator that impact our perception of what's happening. So one of the things we've talked about with this campaign is this is a regional campaign. How do we bring this back to something that is digestible for people that are inundated with messaging across the board about so many elements of their life for so many people, and for what originally was part of the target of this campaign of being disadvantaged communities is very low on their list of priorities to think about when they're thinking about other ways of how we're going to feed our family, how am I going to pay my rent. So how do we make the message something that gets internalized? And for us to get down into the weeds, we love being able to do it with all of you because you're all passionate about this and have the capacity to absorb all of this information. So please keep asking questions to the caucus, to the partners that are here with the caucus. But, we have to think about how do we bring this back out to the level of the average citizen and really simplify the complexity.
Well said, Christina. Well said. Well, I think the greatest gift is a gift of time. If we're wrapping up in terms of Q&A, we can give everybody 5 minutes back in their day.
Not quite 5. We've got a concluding slide or two. There's a question in the chat. I don't know if we need to bring that up, but if anybody from the industry wants to answer Dave Wilms' chat or question about microplastics or recycling, I'm finding that interesting. But we ended on a positive note. I don't want to acknowledge any realities that are going to change that.
If I may, I would say that there is an argument with the environmental community over the value of recycling plastic, because all plastic leads to microplastics. But you also heard a discussion about all the different ways we have plastic. Claire articulated from the paint on our walls to the desks to the materials we're talking on right now. And our goal is to recycle. We've used gas, oil, natural gas to make these products, and we want to keep them in a circular economy as long as we possibly can. So I'm not going to worry about the microplastics that are going to come off of my clothes that are polyester, nylon. I'm not going to get caught up in that. And I think that we're going to find other ways to reduce microplastics in the environment, but I don't believe that recycling is the way to do it. So that's my short answer.
Thank you. We're going to build a directory of sustainability resources. That's one of our goals as well. Our McKinney Climate Fellow, Raul, has created a survey to gather this information. And I believe we're going to have on the screen a QR code. There you go. Look at that. Click on that. Provide us your social security number and checking account numbers, and we'll have all sorts of money to do more recycling. So take a moment to click on that. Our next Environment and Energy Committee meeting. Check this out, folks. It's a sustainability social. Thursday, July 31st at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Blackwell Forest Preserve in beautiful Warrenville, Illinois. That will be fun. Please bring boxes of wine because that's easily recyclable.
Alcohol isn't allowed in Blackwell Forest Preserves.
Well, why the hell would you tell us that?
Because it's on you if you bring it. It's not on
exactly.
us. I had to sign the agreement saying we wouldn't bring alcohol. So.
I know, I'm teasing.
But it should be fun. To make up for the fact that we don't meet in person very often anymore. Right. We thought we would do this fun event, and we encourage all of you to come. Cheryl sent out a message that I thought was really neat, and this is for everyone who drives and leads sustainability in communities, whether or not you have sustainability in your title, or even if you don't have an official title, but you're a great or related to a partner that helps advance the initiatives. We'd love to just to get together and hang out so you can meet each other this summer.
And that's the key. Hang out and have good conversation and forget about all the challenges we're facing. So. With that, anything else, Edith or Cheryl or Tori?
We have we do have a problem with the link not working.
No kidding.
So if you want to hang out, we'll make sure that we get that in there. And no, just the only other thing is that, of course, all of the slides will be on our Environment Committee page. Yes. And then if you're on this meeting and you don't normally get our invitation and want to go ahead and email Cheryl Scott. We do ask for municipal coordination if you want to join the committee formally. So just municipalities know who's representing them on the call, but we'd love to, those big group here today. And if you'd like to join the committee, we want to make sure you're on that list.
Thank you, everybody. Again, it's going to be a hot day today, tomorrow, and I think for the remainder of the week and the weekend. So be careful out there. Sunscreen. Lots of fluids. And with that, enjoy the remainder of your Tuesday. And thank you again for all the good work you do. That's good with 2 O's. See you guys.